everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of the Bumanlag Project, coming to you live from Amherstburg, Ontario, driven by the good folks over at Motor City Chrysler. They are driving good news in Windsor and Essex County. So thank you to Jason and the entire team for being this season's sponsor of the Bumanlag Project as we continue with these weekly chats with people in Windsor and Essex County, coming to you live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Don't forget, we've got past episodes up on Apple Podcasts, or you can check out my YouTube channel for folks that you may have heard, seen, or topics that you didn't know about that were happening right here in Windsor and Essex County. This is the place where Windsor and Essex County comes to talk and have those heartfelt conversations on a weekly basis. So lots to get to. Here we are, the first official day of summer, June 21st, 2022. Father's Day this past weekend. If you celebrated, if you are a dad, if you are a father figure, if you are a grandpa, I hope you had a fantastic day. I had a wonderful barbecue at the house with Olivia and Liam, and my in-laws and my parents came over too. And a special shout out to my mom and my dad, who are celebrating 42 years of marriage bliss today. I asked my dad today when I was over at the house with Liam, what's the secret of 42 years of marriage? And my dad says, your mother is always right. So it's served him very well. And I want to salute my dad and my mom, who I know are enjoying a nice night out this evening. So we've got lots to get to on tonight's show. Lots of topical, newsy type of information to get to, because it is on the minds of quite a few people I talk to. It's on the minds of our family, the people in this house in Amherstburg, Ontario, and it's on the minds of my guest clients who call in. Two words: interest rates. They are continuing to see sort of a slow uptick versus what we've been seeing over the last little bit. If you're a homeowner, this is something I know that most people have been watching. Most people have been kind of wondering what's going on. We've sort of talked about the real estate market here on the show. We've peppered information through the last couple of shows with the big turn in what's happening with the Windsor-Essex County real estate market. Bit of a slowdown. Inventory's up. I know driving back into Amherstburg today, the amount of for sale signs is increasing along Front Road, and certainly from Windsor to LaSalle to Amherstburg. So what does this all mean? What do the rise in interest rates mean? And what does it mean to have that customer service embedded in what you do? My guest is just a fantastic woman. I've had the opportunity to call her a friend for the last year and a half. I've known of her for quite some time. You probably recognize her with her fantastic marketing campaign. She's on bus benches all over Windsor, Essex County. And she's helped so many families, countless families, achieve their home ownership dreams. I'm very happy to talk finances and interest rates and community involvement and everything Windsor Essex with my good friend, Rasha Ingratta, who is joining me here on the Bumanlag Project. My friend, how are you?
Hey, Arms. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I know we've done sort of similar things like this over the last little bit, but this is sort of like the off-the-cuff version, the sort of kind of riffing off each other and the long form kind of conversation. So I really appreciate you spending some time with me tonight. I
Yeah,
know how
thank
busy you
you.
guys are.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And by the way, happy anniversary to your mom and dad. And
Okay.
if you were to ask the same question to my husband, he would answer it the same exact way. And we've only been married 12 years, I think.
The wife is always right, right? Your wife is always right. It's got me somewhat. Carrie's probably watching this and she's going to
Mhm.
record it and then play it back to me when I argue with her. But listen, I want to talk. We got to talk about interest rates. We got to talk about your take on this. I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about what you've done with your business and what you've done with your community outreach over the years too. So, Raja, for people who aren't familiar for who you are, what you do, how did you get started doing what you do and doing it so well?
So I'm a mortgage broker in Windsor and Essex County, and I have been doing this since 1999, and so a little over 22 years. And we deal with multiple lenders. We've got different kinds of lenders. We've got your banks and credit unions and financial institutions that are your A lenders, and then we've got alternative lenders and private. So pretty much, if we can't do it, nobody can. And I always try like I had a client that called me today in the morning. He's like, the banks are not approving me and I don't have really good credit. And I ended up getting him done an approval with a bank. So a lot of people think that they have bad credit, but if you can tweak a few things and explain what actually happened in their life, um, you just have to have a good story. And, we can usually place it with a bank first. If not, we can place it other places.
So you really become the advocate for these families, for these individuals, to kind of get them where they need to be in a financial position when they're looking to make a big purchase like owning a home, or starting that home ownership journey too. You and I talked about your beginnings in this and why you decided to become sort of this guru when it comes to getting people approved and getting families into homes. That personal story for you is really touching, and I think it's beneficial for my audience to know about your personal connection, because this is something that you've experienced as well, right?
Yes. So when I was younger, like, when I was 12 years old, um, when I was beginning my home purchase journey, I was declined by the banks, and I thought it was the end of the road for me. I didn't even know that other lenders existed. And a friend of mine told me to call a mortgage broker. And when I called, and I ended up getting a mortgage with a bank, when that same bank actually declined me. So, you know what? It it all, like, I have bank advisors from the banks that call me and ask me for my advice, and I tell them that, like, they're people I talk to every day because we deal with them on a daily basis. I say to her or him, did you try this? Did you do that? Did you explain this? Like, I had a bank advisor call me today, and she was trying to do a mortgage for a client from the US. Like, they work in the US and they live in Canada. And I said, did you explain this? And she's like, oh, no, I didn't. And then she emailed me 30 minutes later and said, Rasha, thank you very much. My underwriter approved it for me. If it weren't, like, I could have just said, you know what, send the deal over, I'll get it done. But I helped her in getting it done at her branch.
So
Um,
it really is like a case by case basis, right? When you deal with people to see what's going to be it's not like, it's not like you have option A, B, and C, and that's all you have. You have a plethora of options for people, really based on their particular situation, to sort of craft that option for that person so it makes sense for the lender and it makes sense for the lendee, right?
Yeah. Every single client, every single purchase has its own story. It's not like the way it used to be a long time ago. Here's a letter of employment, here's a pay stub. People now work, they're contracted by companies, so that means you're self-employed. A lot of people in Windsor work in the US. That means they have to file a Canadian and American income tax return. There's been a lot of people in the past couple of years where their credit has been affected because of COVID. There's been a lot of people that haven't worked that many hours in the last 2 years. I've seen T4s last year where somebody made 52,000, where if you looked at their 2019 T4, they were at 80,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're like, okay, how did they make 52 in 2021 and 80 something in 2019? Well, because COVID hit, a lot of people, more so in 2020, a lot of people were out, they weren't working, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unless you lived on a different planet, okay, I have to explain to you that, the past 2 years, your income, the income of this individual hasn't been the same, because of the decrease in hours. Now, a lot of lenders and underwriters will still ask you the same question. They know it's COVID, okay, for sure, but sometimes it could be a different reason. It could be that they had a sick person in their household and they had to take time
Sure.
off. So you really, really have to tell the story, um, and make sure it makes sense, because if you don't make sense, the lender's going to decline it. And that's what happens in a lot of cases. Somebody will walk into, like, talk to an advisor that is not very well known or versed in mortgages, and it gets declined. And then, they come to us and we get it approved. But you know what? Like, you have to do like 1,000 mortgages a year to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
know how to explain it better than that.
Well, it's just like it's like you live, you eat, you breathe, you sleep it, and you get to see. I mean, I'm pretty sure, and forgive me for speaking out of turn, my friend, but you've probably seen it all, and you've probably, dealt with a lot, and to see the ins and outs, and maybe if this lender might be a better fit for this person, or if this lender is more apt to go with this particular situation, not to pigeonhole that situation, but you know it, you breathe it, you live it, and that's what you've done with your team too, because that's been a big blessing for you too, because you can only be in so many places at once.
Yeah, so there was a couple, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, when I was doing so many, I was doing huge volume and it was just me. This is before Vanessa Field joined my office, my team. And I was all by myself. And I literally went to a conference and we had dinner that night. And one of my BDM at the time sat next to me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And tears just came down my face. And she's like, "Is everything okay?" Like, I think she thought something was wrong with my family or, all of that. And I'm like, no, no, everything's great with my family. I'm just hitting a plateau. I can't do anymore. I work from 7 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. at night. And if I can work more, I would. So that's when I found Vanessa Field. It was like God said she was sent to my office, um, or that I met her. And she joined my team and we were able to do double. And then we slowly grew. I brought on Vanessa Field and I brought on a few more people. And now there's 10 of us in the office. And
And
so,
it's a beautiful location too, because I should quick plug on Dougal Avenue, and I want to get to that too. I've had a chance to work with Rasha on a couple of different things with the Humane Society and some other charitable endeavors I know coming down the pipe too. It's a beautiful location, very warm, very inviting, and there's a good vibe. When you walk into somewhere and you can, the second you walk, for me, it's like I don't know if that's like my empath in me, where it's like I walk in somewhere, I'm like, oh, I don't know about this place, or I don't know, but as soon as you walk in, it's a very calm, it's a very welcoming vibe, which is what you want, because a lot of people when they walk into a place, um, like to get that information from you, they're going to have questions. There's going to be a bit of uneasiness, so it's nice to have that very welcoming atmosphere as soon as you walk in.
yeah, when we built that place a couple of years ago, I drove Steve nuts because like, for those of you that don't know Steve, of course he's my husband, but like, he works for a company, a construction company. So when we were building the place, he he thought we were going to lose our shirt, but I'm like, I made that place actually more beautiful than my home. um and like, the reason for that is because I'm there so often and I wanted it to be comfortable and a, a good feeling for everybody to feel that, when they're there working there or visiting, or if you're a client or anything like that.
Rasha Ingratta is my guest here on the ABP. We are talking about interest rates. We're talking about renewals. We're talking about mortgages. We're talking about YQG. We're talking about what you want to talk about. And you can comment on the live stream on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on Twitter too. Let's go to some of the comments coming in for Rasha. Nicole says, what company are you with, and do you do renewals?
So the brokerage that I work for is Mortgage Intelligence. There are over 3,000 mortgage brokers that work for Mortgage Intelligence, and I'm one of them, Canada wide. And yes, we do renewals. So when your mortgage is coming up for renewal, or some people call it at maturity, um, we do that. And I always tell people, if you're coming up for renewal, don't call 10 days before your renewal date. You really don't have time to do anything. You want to call about 3 to 6 months prior to the renewal date This way we can look at your options, what is available to you, and then you're not stuck in just renewing that mortgage because you only have 10 days to renew, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not. You can sort of level the playing field, right? If you know that hey, this is when the it becomes the mortgage is hits that maturity date. This is something that we can plan now, and then you can get them hopefully a decent rate and something that makes sense for them too. Because as you know, I mean, for folks like our family, like we're in a 5-year fixed. Our 5-year scenario 5 years ago is very different than it is here in 2022. 5 years ago, we moved into our house. We had a little one under the age of 2. Now I've got almost a 5-year-old, and I've got a 4-month-old. So yeah, like your needs change, I think, and I think that has to factor in and sort of your plans because life changes too.
Yeah. And a lot of times you'll get a letter that says this is your renewal rate, and it just looks really easy, and you want to sign the paperwork and send it back. But I've had so many people that call me after they've renewed, like 2, 3 months later, and say, you know what, I wish I could have talked to you before my renewal, because at that time there's no penalties to like take out equity, or because you're coming up for renewal, there's no penalty to do all those things. Take out equity to put in a pool in your backyard, or pay off debt, or take out money and reinvest. I have a lot of people right now, like I'm doing a mortgage right now for 2 doctors, like husband and wife. They have so much equity in their home, about $700,000 of it.
Wow.
We took it out, and we're going to be using that money to buy 2 or 3 different rental properties. And
Wow.
let and I love talking about this. Let your asset work for you. Okay. So what I mean by that is, if you take your $1 million or your 500,000 and you put it in the bank, and you are an RSP or an investment, what kind of return are you getting on that? Versus if you take that money and you buy a $700,000 property, and you put the minimum down payment down, which is 20%,
Mhm.
and you're letting that asset work for you. So you're letting the rent pay the mortgage and the expenses, and it's really not costing you anything every month. Okay. And in 15, 20 years, that asset is paid off right now. So what did it really cost?
Hmm.
The interest was paid by the rent. Okay. The property taxes were paid by who? By the rent, whoever was paying, you know what I mean? So let's just say in the matter of 15 years, you're going to spend $100,000 in renovations, which that's too much. I don't think it would cost 100. Okay. But let's just say it did. You spent $100,000, and you're going to gain in 10, 15 years, you've got an asset that's probably going to be worth $1 million,
Hmm.
right? Can you take any investment like that and see it grow in 10, 15 years like that?
No, no.
Right?
So my question to you, my friend, is, I mean, you're illustrating it so clearly. So why aren't more people, if they're able to do something like this, like why do you think that it's not hesitancy, but maybe it's a lack of information, right? I mean, there's a lack of that knowledge that I think you and I have talked about this. Like, I mean, 2022. And by the way, for folks who are watching or listening to this after the fact, Rasha does some pretty awesome videos. There's always that reaction on the news when things come down the pipe. If it is, and I want to get to that too, the rising interest rates and all that kind of stuff that it seems to be dominating the headlines right now. um, Within minutes, if you go to Rasha's page, she's got a video straight from her studios talking a little bit about what all that jargon and mumbo jumbo really means and what you should be doing. And they're succinct, great videos to watch. Like I will catch something on the CBC about it, and then I'll literally will go to Rasha's page and wait for her video to pop up to see the reaction. So it is pretty awesome to see. But so why do you think that this isn't not more commonplace with people to say, hey, this is something that we should look into if we do have the financial capability to do so, to sort of better us down the road 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So the major thing that I get from people is the fear factor, or the fear component of, like, I'm worried about doing this because what kind of renters I'm going to have. Like, I don't know how to do this. It's almost like a business, you know, when you buy a property and you're going to rent it out, you want to make sure that you've got the right team to partner with to make sure that you're getting it done right. So having said that, you know, you buy a property and you go to rent it out. How are you going to rent it? Who are you going to rent it to? How are you going to determine that this is the right tenant for me? I have a recent property that I'm trying to rent out right now, and I've turned away probably 15 people.
Hmm.
I had a gentleman. I mean, I don't like to necessarily talk about this, right? But I'm really like, I check credit, I check income, I call the current landlord. Why are they moving out? The landlord will tell me, Rasha, they're great people. They're moving out because I'm selling the property. Or Rasha, like, read between the lines. I'm like, thank you very much. Hang on. You know, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. You know, because if somebody called me and I had a tenant that was not paying the bills or not returning calls, or my house is a disaster because of them, do you think that if somebody called me and asked me about them, I wouldn't tell them the truth? So you really have to know these things, and you have to, and that's a fear for a lot of people. Like, am I going to buy a property and I'm not going to know how to um, take care of the process? So I help people out. I help them find tenants, believe it or not. I know I'm just a mortgage broker, but um, I help people out in that process, and I don't charge for it or anything like that. But in the long run, I know my clients have come back to me over and over and over again because they know they're not going to get this anywhere else, you know?
I think that's a testament. Even like the times I've come by the shop and I've talked to you, talked to your staff, and get to work with you guys on a number of charitable projects here in the city. Um, and just to hear some of the feedback from people too, it's that customer service lens, right? It's all the advertising. I always said, like, all the advertising somebody does is great, but sometimes the best advertising is a satisfied customer, because then they become your advocate, right? They start to sing your praises to other folks and say, hey, you know what, if you need a mortgage, this is the person you need to go to. If you want to listen to something, this is the person you should listen to. I think that's so crucial for people to understand too. And I've said it before on the show too, Rasha. Like, I feel that customer service, especially post pandemic, whatever you want to call that we're in right now, is going to be a skill that is going to be so valuable for forward thinking businesses and organizations, because I think people want everything yesterday, which is fine because we live in this digital age. But I think it takes a real important skill set to kind of work with people one on one and to kind of see where they're coming from to make them feel at ease. And that's a very hard skill set to find, and I think some people are inherently born with it. But when you have that mindset, I think, of reaching out to people one on one and making them feel at ease, they're going to want to do business with you. They're going to want to continue to do business with you down the road, because you are, quote unquote, the expert, and you're kind of subconsciously telling them why you're the expert is because you're guiding them through that process.
Yeah, you know, it's so important as you're saying all of that. And, you know, if I could give one piece of advice to anybody, not just a mortgage broker, but anybody in business, and I think people will understand when I say this, like, people have different personalities. Okay. Like, I have one guy that I'm dealing with right now. He's very, very, very anxious. I think his anxiety attacks, like, I think this guy's going to die early. Okay. Very nice guy, beautiful heart, but he's very scared. I think even if he went to McDonald's and asked for a Big Mac, he would probably open up and check and see if there's really a Big Mac in there. Okay. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like
Sure.
that's the type of personality is. Okay. So
Yep.
when you work with that extreme personality, you really have to like, I mean, imagine like this guy probably called 15 brokers before me and they probably all hung up on him. But not hung up, but you know what I mean? Like not give him the time of day. But
Sure.
I took the time, I listened to his what he's really, really anxious about. And now he's calm. Like if I wish I had a recording of him when I first talked to him
Just to
and how
compare.
he is now, right?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now, this is how he talks to me. Thank you, Rasha. Thank you. You know what? Um, like just do what like he's really, really trusting what I'm putting out, because I, there's just people that have personalities where they really need hand holding. And I don't blame them because if I went to go buy a car, I would
Sure.
need hand holding. I had no idea how to buy a car. Like I just know what I need. I need it to look nice and look pretty,
Sure.
but I don't know what I need it to look inside. like, you know,
It's funny you should bring that up because and that's something else I wanted to talk to you about. If you're just joining the show, we're talking to my good friend Rasha Ingratta. She is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to mortgages and refinancing here in Windsor, Essex. She's very community minded too. Got lots of community topics to talk about with Rasha here in the next little bit as well. But I wanted to talk about that sort of news piece here on the show, and something that I think has been keeping a lot of people up at night is the interest rates. And every day, whether it is an article in the CBC or it's the National Post, um, certainly I've got my opinion on the real estate market, whether it's right or wrong here locally. But the real estate market, from fact of the matter is, there's more selection now for people here in June. We're seeing more homes put up for sale, and Louis sort of the reign of real estate. There we go. This is the gods not wanting me to talk about real estate here on the show. But all kidding aside, you see the amount of selection that people have nowadays, and then you take a look at what is happening generally speaking with interest rates. What is your take on this? I mean, they're sort of kind of turning up the knob, so to speak, here at the Bank of Canada to say, hey, home prices might be, we've heard from a lot of people too that home prices are somewhat out of range for a lot of folks, and they're turning up the interest rates ever so slightly, ever so slightly. So, what's your take on all this over the last couple of weeks?
yeah. So here is, I feel like a broken record because I probably repeat this like 25 times a day. I get calls, emails, and you know what? My friends here on Facebook probably know what I'm talking about because they've called me and emailed me. So this is what my intake is. And I am not an economist. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but it is pretty ballsy of me for me to say this. Okay. Like, you don't just come on in the public and talk about this, but I'm very, very confident in what I'm about to say. Okay.
Okay.
And sometimes this will go over somebody's head, but I have been saying this since the pandemic. Okay. Since during the pandemic, where interest rates were very low, they hit rock bottom, like they hit 1.59% for a 5-year fix, right? And now they're at 5.25. Okay. Why? Why is the question? During the pandemic, interest rates dropped, and now we have inflation. Why do we have inflation today? It's not because the economy is not doing well. It's because we have a shortage of supply and huge demand for things, for cars, for homes, for baby diapers, I don't know, like anything, right? Like any type of product. Interest rates were so low for a long time that it boosted people's confidence to buy anything and everything. pandemic now, thankfully, is over, and or getting there. The
Sure.
Bank of Canada, what are they doing? They're raising interest rates to try to cool down inflation. Does that make sense? You're cutting out there.
Mhm.
You got me. Does that make sense? So the Bank
Yes,
of
it does.
Canada
Yeah.
is raising interest rates to, or raising the Bank of Canada rate to cool down inflation. And, inflation right now is at 6.8%. For a long time in the past 10 years, it was fluctuating between 2 and 3%. So it hit 6.8. Now, when it hits 6.8, what is Bank of Canada going to do? Sit down and watch it go higher? No, they're going to raise interest rates to cool down the economy, the inflation, in hopes to calm down people from spending too much, which, if you can see now, it's happening. The prices of homes have have kind of calmed down because
Oh yeah.
there's not as many bidding wars, and we're just getting back to normal. If you think about it, we didn't have bidding wars 5-6 years ago.
No.
Okay, but right now we're kind of going back to the norm. And I think that a lot of people are calling and they want to lock in their interest rates. And I'm telling them, I had a guy that called me the other day. He has a discount on Prime at 1%. So Prime today is at 3.7, right? And so his rate is 2.7. He called me and he asked me if he can lock in his rate. And I said, can I ask you one question? What do you think your rate is going to be if you lock in today? And his first answer was 2.7. He thought he was going to get a 5-year fixed rate at 2.7. And I said, okay, that's wrong information, number one. Okay, what can I tell you what your rate will be today if you go to lock in? He was with a certain bank, and that bank was at 5.25. So his monthly payment was going to double. Now,
Oh.
yeah, it was going to double. So if it was 1,500, now it's going to be 3,000. Okay, so so that will be a payment shock. Now, the other thing too, so he didn't end up locking in,
Mhm.
and I told him why he shouldn't lock in. I'm telling everybody why they shouldn't lock in. And by 2024, I think rates are going to come back down. And here's
Mhm.
two reasons why. The Bank of Canada is trying to calm inflation, cool down inflation. So if that happens by 2024, rates are going to come back down. Okay. The other thing that can cause rates to come back down, everybody's talking about this, is recession, right? So inflation is high now because people are spending their money. When recession happens, rates are going to come back down because the Bank of Canada is going to reduce their rates to try to boost consumer confidence, right? I mean, Google it. You'll see that they will bring rates back down when recession happens. I really hope to God that we don't hit recession, but I really feel if you follow the big economists like Benjamin Tal, which is one of my favorite economists, he'll tell you that he feels, or like the economists, they feel that this recession is not happening because we have a bad economy. This recession is happening because inflation is high and there's a lot of consumer spending. And as soon as it hits, it's going to be temporary.
It's funny you
Okay.
should say that too, because I mean, I go back to March 2020 when like the world ended, right?
Yeah.
And I say to people, it's like you had your toilet paper panic buying, you had people wearing like buckets over their heads with N95 masks going into Walmart, spraying down your groceries before you bring in, and then everybody sort of travel stops, generally speaking, and then as things start to kind of expand and then retract with the lockdowns and that whole saga for 2 years, I think a lot of people said, okay, well, I'm stuck at home. I'm home. I want to. Now's the time to. I mean, if there was a couple of stories I read where people wanted to go buy RVs because they couldn't go down to Florida or they couldn't travel, so they're spending $80,000 on an RV, just like that. No rhyme, no reason. Just we haven't had a chance to do it. We're going to do it. Or a buddy of mine always wanted a pair of Sea-Doos, and that's what he did. He dropped put it financed Sea-Doos for like $35,000, right? And now he's like, now I have them and I'm going out. So there's that non-cautionary spending, right? There's more of that, the world ended, so to speak, so I'm going to spend my money and enjoy my time here. But then on the flip side of that, a lot of people I think are having that big paradigm shift where they want to find that purposeful work, right? Like there's people who are in these particular positions in different jobs and could even be high paying jobs, but saying, this isn't for me, and then they go find something out that kind of aligns with their core values. So this all sort of is cyclical, and it all kind of, it's like the domino effect. If one falls, the other one falls. So they can't get enough staff in, and then it drives, there's a shortage on goods and supplies, and like you said, everything kind of happens full circle too. But um, we've certainly seen it from a real estate perspective too, like just the amount of 8, 9, 10 different offers coming down the pipeline, and then all of a sudden crickets, right? For certain properties, and it's interesting to see that, and it's interesting to see that the Bank of Canada is kind of going to hopefully renege a bit, and pull back if a recession does happen. It's somebody once told me, Russia, it's sort of cyclical, right? And it'll be interesting to see this area, because we've kind of caught up, I think, comparably speaking, to Toronto and some of the bigger areas in terms of even housing over the
Mhm.
last 4 or 5 years. And I mean, geez, even on my block here in Amherstburg, half my neighbors are from the GTA area who've relocated down here in the last 3 to 4 years,
Yeah.
because it's a better quality of life. And for them, these sticker prices of 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 raised ranches are a drop in the bucket compared to GTA, Kitchener, Hamilton, and those areas too. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, I think, how this all plays out. I just hope it's not. I heard somebody say the other day that this reminds them of the 1980s housing market crash, and how interest rates went up to, like, I think 18, 19%. I don't think
Yeah.
that's going to be the case, right? I don't that feasibly cannot happen. I don't think, because that will cause like a system wide collapse, I would think.
Yeah. And you know what? I always tell people, the world has evolved. We've become, back in 1980, if you watch a movie in the 1980s, do you see anybody on their phone?
No,
No. Do you
no,
see anybody on
not
the
at all.
computer? No.
No.
There were no computers, there were no cell phones, there was no technology. And interest rates, I feel like the government right now has more hands on on the economy than they did back then. They're not going to let interest rates go up that high. Right now, the Bank of Canada, I like that the Bank of Canada is raising interest rates. I know if somebody has a shoe right now, they'd hit me with it, right? But but this is not a um, a bad thing that the Bank of Canada is doing. This is a great thing. They're raising interest rates because they want to cool down the economy. Once the inflation cools down, interest rates are going to come back down. And for anybody that is going to lock in their variable rate mortgages, and they're going to lock in at 5-year fixed rate mortgages at 5.25 or 5.39, because that's what they're going for right now. A year or two from now, you're going to want to refinance that mortgage to get a lower rate. And guess what? I don't know if you know, because a lot of people don't know this. You're not going to pay a 3-month interest penalty. You're going to pay 3-month interest penalty or interest differential. It's called an IRD, whichever one is greater. And I've done the math for many people where I would calculate the 3-month interest penalty and it would be like $1,900. And then I would calculate the interest differential and the penalty would be like $10,000. So it's right in the contract of an approval certificate when people sign. It'll say that you're going to pay 3 months interest or interest differential, whichever one is greater, and that only applies for 5-year fixed rate mortgages. On a variable rate mortgage, it's just 3 months interest. 3 months. Okay. So why would you? It's like I compare it to stocks. Okay. If you had $100,000 stock and right now it's dropped to $10,000, are you going to go sell it or are you just going to weigh it up? That's what you're doing when you're going to lock in your variable rate mortgage. You're going to say, you know what, I'm going to lock in at 5.25. Well, you just gave yourself a death sentence for 5 years.
So I'll be honest. So in our situation, when we're up for renewal in like October of 2023, if the rates are tepid, in the sense like maybe they're not five for a fixed, like 5% for a fixed, maybe they're lower, and I hope, but they're lower, say for like a 1 year or a 2 year. Would you recommend doing that and locking in a 1 or 2 year at a lower rate and see how it plays out for 2024, 2025?
I just checked with one of my lenders because I had a client that was so adamant about wanting a fixed rate mortgage, and the 3-year rate was 4 point something.
Okay.
I would still wouldn't. I mean, if you really wanted to lock in to a 3-year rate at 4 point, I forget what it was. I mean, that's a good rate, but variable rate mortgages right now, you can get, so prime right now is at 3.7, and you can get a discount on that. So 0.5, 0.5, 0.9, depending on the type of mortgage you're getting, if it's conventional or insured. So if that's your net rate will always be prime minus the discount. So even if prime went up to 5%, right now it's at 3.7. And they're thinking that prime is going to go up in the next year to 3 or 4 times. So even if it goes up to 6%, which I think might happen by the end of next year, and if you've got a discount on prime of 1%, that means your net rate is going to be 5%. Okay. Why would anybody want to? And then again, you want to pay off that mortgage, it's 3-month interest penalty. If you locked in at a 5-year fixed rate at 5.25, it's 3 months interest or interest differential, whichever one is greater. Interest differential is calculated on whatever your rate is. Let's say it's 5.25, and a year down the road, and I said death sentence, but I want to take that back because I don't like using negative words like that. But
Sure.
if you took your 5.25, and if the rates go down to 3.5, and now you want to refinance your mortgage to get that 3.5% interest rate, it's going to be calculated on that 1.5% difference, depending on if you have 3 years left on your mortgage, on, let's say, a $500,000 mortgage. I can almost bet you if I did the calculation, your penalty at that time will probably be 20 grand.
Wow.
And we've seen that. There was actually an article not too long ago where I forget which newspaper it was, but it talked about penalties and how huge they were for people. And they didn't know about it until they went to close on their homes. They were expecting so much from their sale, but now they have to deduct $20,000 of penalties because they didn't expect that their penalty was going to be 20 grand. So this is all information that people need to know when they're going to sign the paperwork. How are penalties being calculated? A lot of times people say, you know what, I'm not going to sell in 5 years, but you never know.
Yeah, for sure.
You never know. You might move. You might, you just never know. You might want to refinance to. We do so many refinances for people that have mortgages. Let's say 5-year mortgages. They come to us 2-3 years later, wanting to refinance for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So what does that entail? What does that entail to refinance then? If somebody's looking to get that done, or if they're looking to, sort of free up cash flow in their homes, what does that look like?
To refinance?
Yeah.
So when we're refinancing a mortgage, I have a conversation. I love to have 5-minute conversations. So I ask, what do you owe on your mortgage? When do you come up for renewal? Because then I can figure out what their penalties are going to be, their current interest rate, and what are they looking to do with that money. It's very important to know what you're refinancing, that you're not taking the money and blowing it up in the casino or something like that, like
Yeah, yeah.
um, you want to make sure you're using it for the right purposes, paying off debt, lowering your debt, lowering your payments, your monthly payments, so increasing cash flow, um, reinvesting it in real estate. So the refinance process is really easy. It takes about a day or two to figure out the math, go over the payments, and bettering the client's situation. I've had many times where people wanted to refinance, and I've said to them, I don't see this being a good thing for you. And, I can't come up like, there's different penalties are huge is one big one. I would advise them not to do it. Wait until your maturity date, because it's costing them too much money to do that.
Mhm.
That's one big reason. I don't know if I answered your question on that, but
No, it's good. No, it's good. I just thinking about all the options people have, and I think that's so crucial. So, to kind of put a bow in sort of the mortgage talk for this show. I mean, if people want to talk to you, talk to your team, just make a call to the office, right? Reach out.
yeah. Give us a call, or email us. We've been getting a lot of emails. I feel like we get more emails now more than phone calls.
Phone calls, yeah.
Um, I've been getting a lot of Facebook messages because I've created a private Facebook group, specifically for I mean, you're on it,
Yes, I
right?
am proud to
Yeah.
be on it.
I've created this private Facebook group for my clients, for my referral partners, because I am putting out videos at least once a week where whenever I hear something in the media or something that is wrong, okay, like wrong information or misleading information, I go on there and I create a video about it because I want people to have the right information. We were in Muskoka about a month ago, me and my husband, and we were sitting at a restaurant, and there were 4 people sitting next to me, and I could hear what they were talking about. And my husband kept saying to me, Rasha, like I wanted to get up and say something. They all had the wrong information about mortgages. And believe it or not, one is in the industry. I don't want to say what industry, like I'll say it. He's a real estate lawyer. And he was saying that if you were a second time home buyer, that you can't put 5% down on a home. You have to put 20%. So arms, let's say you bought another house. Let's say you
Mhm.
sold your house and you wanted to buy another one.
Mhm.
This real estate lawyer will tell you you can't buy a house with 5% down. You have to have 20% down. That's wrong information.
Hmm.
Okay, so he's telling this other person that's sitting in front of him, selling his home, that like he's not going to have, because he refinanced not too long ago. He wanted to keep some money aside to do renovations on his new purchase. So he doesn't want to put all his money down. He wants to buy the house with 10% down. And
Sure.
so do you see how like misinformation, like that's misleading information, and it was given
Yeah.
by a person that's like not an average person, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're supposed to be an expert in their field, and they're just misleading the people coming them for advice, right?
Right. So my Facebook group, like I like referring people to that group more so than even my website, like because I've got really good information on there, that is relevant to everyday happening, like stories, and it's called Expert Mortgage Advice with Rasha Ingratta.
And
So
if you find that, I'll put it in the comments too after the show on
okay.
Facebook, so people could link up to it too. So I ask people if you really want to get updated and get sort of the truth to the news. I mean, sign up for this and you'll get those updates in your feed as they come in. Listen, we got a couple minutes left to go on the show, but I want to talk about how community minded you are. And that's one of the things that I love about you, amongst other things, is about how much you give back to the community. And I know, shout out to you and the entire team for being such huge supporters of the Windsor Essex County Humane Society. I know you guys have come on board for a number of projects with us. You'll be back on board with us this year for our golf tournament too. But you've got so many different things that you're involved in and so many cool things that you're involved in to kind of help people in Windsor Essex. So tell me a little bit more about those charitable endeavors that you do, Rasha.
Oh my God. I feel like I don't talk about it much, but I think we just do it to do it because we feel good about doing it. Um, we help like local families. We try to find out who needs anything and we try to support them that way. Um, I love my main, my two things that are near and dear to my heart is children and pets. So if anything is involved with the Humane Society or like anything to do with pets or cats, we just welcomed a kitten to our house. His
Oh, that's
name,
awesome.
yep. So we have Portia, and now
Yes.
we have Gus. So my son called him
Oh,
Gus. I call him Gray Goose because he's a gray little cat.
sure.
So I will do anything for, like I always say, if I win the big $70 million, I would probably quit doing mortgages and you'll find me on huge acreage of land with dogs and cats.
That's awesome. That's a good
So,
life. That's a good life.
um, but anyway, like anything to do with, it's kind of hard to say what we get involved with, but anything to do with helping families out, helping children, helping pets, um, we're in.
Well, I just, on behalf of everybody at the Humane Society, it's been a pleasure to bring you into the fold and the team into the fold with some of our big projects coming down the pipe and, partnering with us on our golf tournament. Rasha, I should say, and her team were one of the businesses from the get go. When I started at the Humane Society, I was like a bull in the china shop. And I said, we got to do a golf tournament. We're not doing a golf tournament. We got to do it's COVID. Great. We got to do something safe outdoors golf tournament. And Rasha said, let's do it. I'm going to help you out with it. And I can firmly say that was the first time we've ever sold out an event for our first ever golf tournament last year at Sutton Creek. So it wouldn't be possible without people like Rasha and her team volunteering and golfing and providing some fantastic prizes for our attendees. So it all goes back to some fantastic folks providing animal welfare here in Windsor, Essex at the Humane Society. So honestly, Rasha, I think you're a fantastic lady. Everybody on the team is just awesome to deal with, and thank you so much for being you and providing some great information tonight for my show, and obviously everything that you continue to do in the Windsor Essex area too. So God bless you, my friend. I really appreciate knowing you and working with you too.
Thank you so much, Arms, and it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to talk to you too, and I will see you soon. So take care. Have a great night. Give my best to everybody at the house. Okay.
Thank you so much, and you as well.
Thank you, my friend. Rasha Ingratta, what an amazing lady. Just huge information there for people to absorb when it comes to the market. And I know a lot of people have questions. Shopmortgages.ca. You can find out a little bit more. She's from Mortgage Intelligence. And you know what? It's your mortgage and it's their focus. They're located on Dougal Avenue and so community minded too. She gets involved with all sorts of different charities, including the Humane Society. We're happy to have her on board as a very important sponsor and partner with us. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I remember again at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like saying to people, where is this going to go, interest rate wise? Where does this all go? People were, losing jobs and sort of the world shut down there for a bit. Everybody was at home watching Tiger King. The pandemic first started back in 2020, but here we are in 2022 in the summertime, and I think a lot of people realized, yeah, there's no time like the present to kind of do what they want to do and spend money. Whether or not that's a good or bad thing, I don't know that that's driving inflation or not. But yeah, the market in Windsor Essex has been certainly different over the last couple of weeks. Elika Berry, who was the president of the Windsor Essex County Realtors Association, she had a really good quote on Facebook saying she doesn't believe that things are going to be so hard hit here in the Windsor Essex area when it comes to real estate in the next 2 to 3 years, because really Windsor has sort of come up to where other municipalities and other areas in Ontario have been over the last 4 to 5 years. So if anything, we'll go back to pre-pandemic levels, which was still relatively robust for this area. So there's a lot more selection out there, that's for sure. A lot more properties going on the market each and every day. So I appreciate Rasha's time on the show today. Shopmortgages.ca is her website to check out, and looking forward to entertaining her and her team at our upcoming Putts for Paws, second annual Putts for Paws golf tournament for the Windsor Essex County Humane Society. That's coming up in the month of September. Cat's out of the bag. We'll be back at Sutton Creek for the biggest party on the golf course Windsor Essex has ever seen. I don't want to oversell it, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And our presenting sponsor this year is M&M Food on Walker Road. Paul and Rhonda and their team have come on board as our presenting sponsor. And man, we've got a great day of golf and fun planned in late September. So stay tuned for some more details on that. Okay, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Stay cool. It is quite the kickoff to the season of summer today. It was a scorcher outside. I actually took Liam out for some pizza tonight for dinner, him and I, to Oven 360. If you've never... Oven 360 is the same folks who did the pizza at Caboto Club. Opened up their new, it's not new anymore, but it's their chain that they have. Oven 360, they've got pizzas in the store that you can buy, the frozen pizzas, but then you've got the pizza parlors that you can go to. So I took Liam to Oven 360 for dinner tonight on Walker Road. And man, the kid's like 4.5. He just crushed a personal pizza himself. It's nice to see him eat. But we were outside on the patio having pizza, him and I, and just kind of talking. And it was hot. Oh my God, really, really hot. So halfway through us eating dinner, I said to Liam, let's go inside, buddy. It's blazing out here. So just stay cool is the moral of the story. It's going to be a hot stretch as we head into the weekend. And before you know it, it'll be fireworks night too, which is next Monday, the 27th. And it's a great opportunity for you to catch the fireworks at the riverfront back again. Coming up in the next couple of days, speaking of fireworks, we're going to be talking to my friend Maggie DeRoche from the Windsor Parade Corporation. Worked with Maggie for close to 20 years. Fantastic lady, too, and very community-driven. And she's going to be joining the show for a special edition of this program on Thursday night. We're going to talk about some of the trials and tribulations the Windsor Parade Corporation has had to do over the last couple of years because of COVID, and what's in store for this year's fireworks night and the Canada Day celebrations that are going to be taking place on Friday, July 1st in Windsor. So Maggie DeRoche is live on the show with us this Thursday night here, 8 o'clock on the Arms Bumanlag Project. Folks, have a great rest of the evening. We'll see you back on Thursday. Make sure to check me out, armsbumanlag.com. Catch up on past episodes, and we will see you on Thursday night. Thanks for watching.